Good evening. Welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the programme tonight, two special focus points. First, with new satellite imagery available in just the last few hours to NDTV, we are able to bring you a clear look at the path of destruction of the Chamoli earthquake. The images are vivid and you don't want to miss what they show. That's coming up in the next 1 minute. Also on the show tonight, the open war between the government and Twitter. Twitter issues a statement saying the safety of its employees is top priority at a time where they have refused to restore more than 250 accounts that they had suspended after a demand from the government. The tweets linked to the farmer violence on Republic Day, Twitter felt were not a violation of its policy. The government, on the other hand, has the power of the law. Will they take action? Will Twitter executives potentially be jailed? This also comes at a time when there have been retaliatory investigations ordered onto who was tweeting on Republic Day. The government is looking out for sedition. The Maharashtra government, on the other hand, wants to know why a bunch of celebrities were tweeting in support of the government. Were they under pressure? So, conspiracy versus counter-conspiracy. Where is the conspiracy on Twitter? On the show tonight, the free speech debate. Is free speech being stifled in the government versus Twitter battle? That's coming up later on the show. But first, high-resolution images now available with NDTV indicate the clearest ever sequence of events leading up to the Chamoli disaster. Now, we'll show you before and after images with fairly incredible clarity that show the magnitude of the avalanche. Firstly, this is an image from the 6th of February. An ice and snow-covered ridgeline, a part of the Trishala Glacier not far from Joshimath. Now focus on this area we've marked, the site of the massive avalanche which comes a day later on the 7th of February. But in fact, we've got a picture here of the 8th of February because it's clearer, and as you can see, there is a rock ice avalanche which took place a day earlier, and that entire area has a chunk of ice which is missing. So let's compare. On the left, before the avalanche, and on the right, a day after the avalanche, a huge chunk of ice and snow missing. Next up, an area a few kilometers away from where that avalanche was triggered, which we just showed you. Now, as you can see, this area is entire snowed under, as it should be on the 6th of February. Now focus on this area and see what happens post the avalanche. That's the change we're going to show you. On the day of the quake, of the avalanche, in fact, a massive chunk of ice and snow has just disappeared from that same area. So let's look at the two images again, the day before the avalanche on the left and the day of the avalanche on the right. Now look at the flow of the river near the Tapovan hydel plant, which was destroyed. A narrow stream of green-colored water. You can not really make that out on the 6th of February, a day before the avalanche. But on the 8th of February, a day after, you can see a broad river of brown mud has formed over here. So, compare the images, what it was before the disaster and what it is after, and you can see how much broader the river is. It is now a muddy river. And finally, a long shot of the entire area. This is before the 6th of February, the day before the avalanche, the Tapovan hydel plant to the bottom right. Now look at the circle where the avalanche will hit a day later, and we've also marked out the river valley in blue. Now you can see the devastation of the 7th of February here. It's all become brown, the path of the landslide. And the dust is quite clearly visible in many areas. In fact, this picture taken just shortly after the disaster, picking up that dust. But on the 8th, the dust has settled, and what is left is the extent of the debris field. Well, joining us now live from that disaster zone, my colleague Akshay Dongre. He's been reporting there for the last couple of days. You are in front of that tunnel where rescue efforts have been going on now for 48 odd hours. Any luck, any progress in trying to get those men out?
Well, Vishnu, right now we are at the very epicenter of this entire operations of rescue. And with me, I have SP Dr. Manjunath, who in fact is heading the tunnel operations for the Uttarakhand police. We'll speak to them, but let's first run the numbers here. 32 people are dead. 197 still missing. The operation, though, are continuing. All of these men working round the clock to pace to speed up the rescue efforts. And we'll speak to SP Manjunath as well. Sir, what exactly is the progress? Any luck so far? What are the hurdles that you are facing at this time?
As you can see, the excavation teams combined like two or three excavators, they are still going on and taking out the sludge. But compared to yesterday, the sludge and slurry is very much. So we have got a mixture of slurry which is falling back as we evacuate or excavate. So that is why we are unable to make significant headways. So we are hopeful that we can clear all the slurry and all the sludge as early as possible. And you can see all the agencies are here. Uttarakhand Police, Civil Police is there. Uttarakhand Police, SDRF team, NDRF, ITBP, Army, everyone are there. We are all waiting so that we can get one window of opening where we can send recce teams. And you were there in the afternoon, and we send recce teams 2 times, multiple recce teams, which consisted of people of various organizations. We are all probing how much deeper we can go on foot or using ropes and everything. All the men and officers, they are all going of all the organizations. We are unable to make a significant headway where we can push into it. So we are all hopeful that we will reach that 180 meters landmark as early as possible.
So 180 is the landmark, but how deep have we entered as of now?
I would like to correct that it's not just it's not a landmark per se.
Yeah.
It is a milestone because that is a place where 2 other tunnels intersect.
Right.
So that carries the more probability where people must have escaped and are still trapped there. That is just our probability. It's not confirmed.
All right.
It's not confirmed. So that is why every organization here, everyone, entire machines, everyone, every team who is here, we are all waiting for that 180 meters landmark.
Right.
So thereafterwards, our course of actions will be different.
All right. So thank you so much, Doctor. That was Dr. S.P. Manjunath.
One quick question:
clearly,
how close are they to the 180 mark?
All the efforts are being made. Yes.
How close are they to the 180
I'll just
meter
ask
mark?
him. I'll just ask him that question, Vishnu. Sir, how close are you to the 180 meter mark as of now?
It is very dynamic because exact measurements, the figures cannot be accurate. We are around 110 or beyond that, few meters beyond that. Few meters. I mean, it's not exact. As you can understand, it's a rescue operation and it's just in ongoing operation, so we cannot exactly comment.
But we are around 110
Around
meters.
110 mark.
So you just heard Vishnu, somewhere around 110 meter mark, and that is where the rescue operation stands right now. Yes, it has been over 48 hours that the men are trapped inside, but the rescue operations are continuing, and it will continue till the time the men who are inside are rescued.
All right. Thank you very much, Akshay Dongre, reporting from Tapovan in Uttarakhand. Thanks very much indeed. Well, up next, the open war between the government and Twitter. Twitter issues a statement saying the safety of their employees is a total priority, a top priority, at a time where they have refused to restore more than 250 accounts that they had suspended after a demand from the government. The tweets linked to farmer violence, Twitter felt, were not a violation of its policy. The government, on the other hand, does have the power of the law. Will they take action? Joining us to look at this, Apar Gupta is a lawyer and executive director of the Internet Freedom Foundation. Dr. Sameer Dalwai, the NCP spokesperson, Shreya Singhal, an advocate, and Rajat Sethi joins us as well. Rajat, do you believe that it's just a matter of time before the government has to take action, since Twitter continues to believe that it will not restore those 250 accounts?
Vishnu, so far Twitter has behaved as if it is the super government, and in most of the cases has been the judge, jury, and the executioner. It has been, claiming that its policies stand in certain cases and doesn't work in some other cases, purely by their own idiosyncrasies. Somebody should step in enforcing the law of the land, and I think the government is well within its right to control what is seemingly going to be a single biggest threat to free and fair democracy and its practices. So I think big tech has to be reined in. this incident might just be the right flare-up for the government to rein in and put in place the rule of law, wherein Twitter can't just walk out from its responsibility by claiming that their employees and their apparently this threat on their employees' life is paramount, which seems pretty bogus to me.
Shreya, wouldn't it be disastrous that you've got potentially Twitter India employees locked away? Twitter is such an important part of the life of millions in this country.
I think it's not just Twitter. The thing is that Twitter over here seems to be the first in the line. And I strongly disagree with what Mr. Sethi has said, because the government does the same with its supporters. You have so many people who have been, who have propagated hate speech in the past, especially with what happened in Delhi last year, and no action has been taken against them. So for the government also to take this kind of very biased view against its own citizens and charge them with draconian provisions like sedition, and next I'm pretty sure there will be UAPA. It is absolutely shocking. The government is holding its citizenry, it's blackmailing its citizenry into submission, into silence, because they don't like what people are saying. They don't like the dissent. They want to control the entire narrative. That is not a democracy.
Rajat, isn't this a problem that on the one hand, the government wants to put out a particular narrative? There are Twitter trolls galore on what people tweet, and on the other hand, you believe that expression is okay, or the government believes that expression, some of it is okay. But on the other hand, you want to block out the voices of those who may disagree, sometimes very strongly, with the government.
Well, Vishnu, we have all seen a very clear-cut stand from Jack about its left communist bias. So that's a matter of fact, A. B, we also need to keep in mind...
But what's wrong with that? Sorry to interrupt, but what's wrong with...
Absolutely nothing wrong.
I mean, he liked certain comments, right? He liked certain comments. That is his prerogative. Are you suggesting that he's part of a conspiracy by farmers?
Allow me to finish.
Go ahead, sorry.
You asked me a question. It is a very important question, Vishnu. What has happened in the previous few years, what we have seen is that one specific ideology, which has been obliterated, has been completely outdated, has crept its way into the corporate boardrooms and is trying to push through their set of ideas through those boardrooms. And this is where I personally feel that Jack and certain set of employees in the Silicon Valley are trying to peddle one specific set of agenda. There have been ample complaints from the other set of ideas, which people saying that there has been shadow banning and all of that. The moot point here is one day's incident, which has been largely, a lot of commentators has compared it with the Capitol insurrection, which happened in Washington, D.C. It is very similar set of and scale of events that happened and unfolded in India. And we're talking about that specific day and the kind of people who were involved in peddling lies, hatred, and talking about genocide, which can further create law and order mayhem in the country.
Okay, so a couple of important points
have to be faced. It's a very, very specific context.
Sure. Dr. Dalwai, he's made a couple of points. Answer the first part of what Rajat has said, that there is a certain ideology apparently which even the Twitter boss subscribes to. Now, he didn't say it, but perhaps Rajat was suggesting what communists, leftists, pseudo-secular, secular, God knows, what have you. But certainly not an ideology that he subscribes to.
Pseudo-nationalists. Yeah.
So absolutely, some sort of ideological leaning, not defined, is what is made the Twitter boss take a particular set of comments.
No, I mean, I would think it is comic if it wasn't so tragic, because if you are opposed to an ideology, because you have an opposite ideology, it's entirely your democratic right. This word might sound alien for the last few years, but it's entirely your democratic right to oppose an ideology, even if it is left or whatever else you don't approve of. But you oppose it democratically by speaking about it or speaking against it, not by blocking it. Because by blocking it, you subscribe to an ideology which wants to cut out all other ideologies, and that's the absolute opposite of democracy. That's as simple as that. And I completely agree with what the lady said, Advocate Shreya Singhal. So I don't want to repeat it, but I completely agree with what she said. And that's my answer to his ideology bias. There's no harm in having an ideology, whether left, right or center, which also happens to be the name of this show. But you oppose somebody's ideology by doing things better than them, by speaking against it or demonstrating against it, not by blocking them out. When you block them out, you show that your ideology is weaker and worse than that ideology.
No, but
That's
isn't
why
there,
you want
Dr.
to use
Dalwai, a
force to
double
block.
standard in what you're saying? And the reason I ask is that you want an investigation into those celebrities, sports stars and others who tweeted in favor of the government, apparently because you felt they were under some sort of pressure. So in a sense, you're pressurizing them by saying, I want to investigate who has said this to them. If it is their own birthright to be tweeting what they want, then what is wrong with what they say? Just as you criticize the centre for questioning certain tweets, aren't you doing the same thing? Different side of the coin.
Mr. Vishnu, I repeat what you said. It is their birthright to tweet what they wish. The point here is, I have your, and all of you have Twitter, can actually right now go to your Twitter account and look at the account of a certain gentleman, Mr. Anurag Srivastava, who happens to be the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs of India.
Yes.
Here it is, in front of you.
Yes.
Okay, when you go to his, he has tweeted at 12:05 something against what Rihanna posted.
Correct.
I'm tempted to say chronology samajhiye. I'm tempted to say that. 12:07, 12:05 he tweets. Then I have another photograph here of Akshay Kumar, who replies to Anurag Srivastava's tweet at 2:07 p.m. Nothing wrong with that. Except Akshay Kumar is not following this gentleman Anurag Srivastava.
So?
The only way you can understand, you can know somebody else what he has posted is if you are following, you will get a notification.
No, not necessarily.
If you are not,
this
just
gentleman doesn't even know what Twitter is.
Hello, Rajat,
This
relax,
gentleman
relax,
doesn't
relax,
even
Rajat.
know ABCD
Relax,
of
relax,
Twitter.
Rajat, relax. Rajat, take it easy. Relax, you'll get your chance. If you are not following somebody and you don't get a notification, how would you know that somebody has posted something within 2 hours? An international celebrity like Akshay Kumar, I'm sure he has a team.
No, but that's
I'm
a bit
sure
of leap
whatever
of
has to
faith
be
because,
done,
Dr.
just sign
Dalwai,
off.
most
Another
respectfully,
30
that's not how
minutes
Twitter
later.
works. I often
My
retweet
point is
what
this.
other people say
Let
who
me
I
just
don't
complete.
follow. That's just the
point.
way it works.
Let me complete. I am not against Twitter. I am against how is it that so many people at one particular time, for 70 days farmers are protesting. They don't say a word about it. Suddenly there is a celebrity, international celebrity who tweets something. Then there is the particular gentleman from the Ministry of External Affairs who tweets something. Within 2 hours, somebody who's not
So
even
are you
following
suggesting
him,
all
and
these
a
people have been under
let me
pressure?
finish.
They've been told you either
Let me
retweet
finish,
or you had
let me
it.
finish.
Is that what you're
So
suggesting?
within a few minutes, people almost cut, copy, paste the same words and retweet. One of the gentlemen also retweets posting a party member from Mumbai, a vice president. Isn't it suspicious? I mean, what would you think?
Okay, I
How
want to
would
go
this
across to
happen?
Apar,
It's
who's
not
been
factual.
waiting. Apar has
So
been
we are
waiting
only saying
patiently.
investigate it.
Okay,
We are
Dr.
not
Dalwai, one
threatening the
second,
people
and I want to come back to my other
Neither are we
panelists, but Apar
blocking
has been
them, by
waiting.
the way, Rajat.
And I want to ask him a couple of points on the law over here. Now, Twitter in their latest statement have said, we strongly believe that the open and free exchange of information has a positive global impact and that the tweets must continue to flow. They have also stated that the tweets the government wanted removed, which they have now gotten back, do not violate their standards. So between Twitter and its belief in freedom of speech and its own standards and what India, as per the law, believes in, there is a chasm. That's a fact. So in a situation like this, is Twitter bound to act, yes or no?
Twitter, as per the existing legal provisions which exist under the Information Technology Act, is risking criminal prosecution, which can then lead to a process in they're found guilty, resulting in imprisonment for a period of about 7 years. So it does come with a criminal penalty. And why are they braving it out? Then becomes a natural subsequent question to it. I think it flows that the initial direction which was made on 31st of January or on 1st, and we don't know the date because the order is secret. The order has never been made public. There's not even a press release as was done under the same provision and power as was done in the case of the ban on the Chinese applications.
Right.
So there's complete secrecy which is existing. All we have is this statement, Vishnu, you have read out, and the off-record comments which are being given to reporters every day who are following this story. So essentially, the accounts were suspended for some period of time and then they were reinstated. So it's not only about tweets specifically, it's about user accounts. Secondly, the user accounts which were initially suspended were reportedly, as per these as per these statements and reporting, related to a hashtag. And there was a degree of irrationality there because Mr. Shashi Shekhar's account, who is at the Prasar Bharati, was also suspended.
Yeah, that's right.
And he was supporting the government, actually. So secrecy is actually feeding into that. It also resulted in a suspension of Caravan's account, which is a press publication. Irrespective of its politics, these are account suspensions rather than individual tweets. There's a degree of irrationality and factual inaccuracy. So does Twitter have the legal basis of resisting this demand initially, which was made on 31st and 1st with respect to 250 accounts? I would say yes. But is this the perfect outcome of this entire controversy? I would say no. Twitter is a private corporation. It should not be making these defenses. It's an imperfect stakeholder in this process. Ultimately, the end users of these accounts, which include Shashi Shekhar or Caravan Magazine, need to be given show cause notices, opportunity of hearing, and the eventual direction needs to be made public, because the injury is a two-side injury.
Sure.
Firstly,
No,
for
those
the
are
people
important points.
who posts the content, and secondly for us, the general public, who receive the information. This links to our fundamental rights.
All right.
We'll end it right here.
Shreya, since you went to the Supreme Court and the order was passed in 2015, and you actually went to the Supreme Court at a time when there were a multitude of cases against social media sites like Twitter, Facebook, and the others, and the government could actually demand action without the paperwork. It was only after your case that the Supreme Court read down what exactly was allowed and what was not allowed. But do you believe we are essentially back to square one, that there may be paperwork now, but the number of cases against individuals or corporations or groups on Twitter pushed out by the government of India is deeply problematic?
It is extremely problematic, and I just want to say that there's an eerie similarity with what happened in 2012, which led me to filing this case, where one of the girls in Palghar had liked a comment and she was arrested for just liking that comment under Section 66A. So today it may be Jack Dorsey who's under the scanner, but tomorrow it's going to be someone who's not going to have this kind of protection or this kind of outrage. And that's the point. The point is you're not protecting the right of celebrities or people who are well known. You're protecting the right of the common man. And the fact that these people who are popular on social media and they have a greater reach, the fact that you are going to go and target their accounts also shows the kind of, it's a very sanctimonious approach that the government has decided to take, because the government does exactly the same in today's day and age.
Okay.
And I also feel that there is, it's a double standard. You're holding your entire citizenry to a completely different and unenforceable standard, not following due process of law and flouting everything where it suits you.
All right.
And that can't happen.
Rajat, one last question. Shreya was talking about double standards and she was speaking about the law as well. But in the global sense, what does it say about Twitter users, so many of them in our country, when someone like Meena Harris is threatened for her views, when people put bile against international people who they disagree with, threaten them, want to attack them certainly with their language, with their words, not just one odd freak, but any number of people. What does it say about our ability to handle Twitter?
Well, it's a larger sociological question. I am coming on NDTV, and the kind of bile that I'm going to get post this show on Twitter, you can yourself see it. See, people across ideologies have failed to, come to terms that people can have different views. Yes. There needs to be a sense of acceptance of alternate set of ideas, and this has to also come in from Twitter, which should have been a neutral platform. But you see their CEO openly peddling one specific ideology, and that doesn't stand to his personal set of choices. No, that's what I'm saying. Please allow me to finish, Vishnu. This doesn't stand only to his personal set of beliefs. It actually transcends and reaches these corporate boardrooms. It further goes down and trickles down to individual offices who are taking decisions.
Okay,
I'll
okay.
just
I'm
elaborate.
out of time. Sameer, respond to that last point. Whatever the Twitter boss says percolates down to his organization, everybody else has to follow. That, and therefore Twitter stands for that. Respond to that. Quickly, 30 seconds.
What it means is that whatever the head of a particular government says, all channels and all media has to pander to that. Then it's okay. If it doesn't pander to that, then it's not okay. So if some channel completely panders to what the government wants to say, it's fine. If it's not, you yourself know what happens. And the other point is, there was a journalist, very reputed lady, who was murdered in a gruesome way. And there were people who tweeted bile, as we mentioned, in support of the murderer. And this has happened many times. People have been threatened with rape and murder. And these people are followed on Twitter by none other than the head of the government of this country.
All right, we're going to wrap this up now. I don't want to get this
happens.
into a bigger argument. That's something that often comes up. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. This Twitter debate isn't going anywhere. Time for a short break. Do stay tuned.